reopening is something that we're all looking forward to. It's a little, unnerving that we don't know when it's going to happen. But we're getting, some information about what needs to happen when we do reopen. And we all know that reopening isn't going to be just the same as we close the doors and now we're going to open the doors. Lots of stuff is going to have to happen behind the scenes until, we're ready to let the public come in. And so, that's what we're going to explore today. And we have two people who have graciously volunteered to share what they know and their experiences with us. So I'm going to do both introductions now just so that they can sort of flow into each other and make it a little more seamless. Allison Campbell, who you just met, is the Heritage Outreach Manager for the Washington State Historical Society. So she's going to do more of the high level. Here are the guidelines, here are the toolkits, here's what you need to be, thinking about. Shelby Allman, who is an ACHO board member, and she has multiple roles at CWB. She's curator, she's volunteer coordinator, and she's the Waterfront Operations Manager. So because they have an outdoor facility, they've actually been able to do some sort of reopening, which in many cases it's going to be different from ours, but there are a lot of things that are the same that you have to think about. And so she'll be able to share what they've learned about their reopening. So ladies, thank you very much. I'm going to let you two take it away, with Allison going first.
Great, thank you, Alice. So first I just wanted to share a little bit about the status of our reopening plan for museums with the governor's office. I have to admit, I'd say maybe 3 months ago, all I was thinking about was reopening and how we were gonna help museums reopen, and then it felt like that was never gonna happen, and so I started thinking and worrying about other things. And then last Monday, it felt like all of a sudden we were back in the reopening head, that this might be happening sooner rather than later. As other industries have been allowed to reopen, our kind of task force, if you will, that's been working in Olympia to draft these guidelines and communicate with the governor's office kind of ramped up and reached out again and requested that our guidelines be reviewed for potential reopening. There was pretty positive back and forth from the governor's office with our committee members. And we were hopeful that there would be some kind of announcement on Friday, but apparently, from what I understand, there's one more person who needs to kind of review and sign off on things. That meeting is happening tomorrow. This is all very vague. It feels like there's not much actual tangible to report, but that's what I'm hearing. So things are still kind of on the table, and it's possible that we could hear about reopening this week. I know many of you got requests to send emails to Karin Hanen from Artswa and individuals in the governor's office, just sort of about your organization's COVID experience and impacts. And I would still encourage you to do that if you haven't, and I can certainly, make sure, I think Alice probably has that information with the emails. And I also definitely want to acknowledge that not all of us, I think we're all very aware of how museums are suffering right now, but not everybody is comfortable kind of advocating for museums reopening. And I think that's also okay. And I want to be very clear that that all of the guidelines and all of the recommendations, and should we get the thumbs up from the governor's office that yes, museums can reopen in phase 2, just to also be clear, that's what we're talking about, is allowing museums to open in counties that are in phase 2, that you may not feel like you can do that safely at your site. And that's perfectly fine, and important that you take the steps that you feel are comfortable and appropriate for your individual organization. So with all of that, and do please, as questions come up, you could throw them in the chat or just, I'm comfortable if you interrupt me. I want to just quickly share with you the most recent draft of the reopening plan. So again, this was a plan drafted by a committee, and just for full transparency, I was not on the committee. I was like in maybe a third ring around the committee. So, so I can answer quite a few questions, but maybe not all the nitty gritty. But this is what was initially presented to the governor's office, and sort of after some back and forth as of June 29th, this is where we landed. Now, there could have been some small changes since then that haven't been made sort of public yet. It's broken up into several parts: protecting personnel. And this obviously is concerned with things like providing PPE for your staff and volunteers. Anywhere where you see staff listed here, it should, or you should also read that as volunteers, because you have the same responsibility to provide PPE for volunteers as well, to make sure that they have appropriate social distance in their workspace, to stagger their work schedules if you're not able to create that kind of workspace, to make sure that you're training them on how to communicate expectations to visitors, how to do health checks before coming in. There's sort of details about all of that. And then of course, protecting the visitors. And this is everything from creating one-way traffic flows through your site, to putting up sneeze guards where, you know, people have to interact with frontline staff and volunteers, how to, you know, encourage timed entry, prepaid tickets. And these are all things that I can go into a little bit more detail in when we look at the toolkit. The goal, I just want to make really clear, because we know that all museums are different and there's really no one size fits all here. And I want you to know that these guidelines were drafted in such a way as to offer the maximum amount of flexibility, but still meet the necessary public health requirements. So, you know, you may have a huge piece of taxidermy in your museum, right? A big, I don't know, we have Dave and Dandy. We got big stuffed oxen at our museum that can't be removed, that we know we tell people not to touch, but they touch, right? And so how do we handle that? Well, we could hang plexi in front of it, we could put signage around it and stanchions around it, we could place a volunteer there to encourage people to not touch. You know, there's kind of room within these guidelines, we hope, for you to adapt them for your sites. And I will tell you that I am aware of several historic house museums in particular who have made the decision not to reopen. They'll reconsider reopening maybe in December or at some future point, but they do not feel that they can meet these guidelines given the small rooms, the high touch surfaces that can't be sanitized because they're historic wood, whatever. So that's definitely a decision that some folks are having to make. So I encourage you to take a look at this document. It also kind of explains, you know, there are some museums that are in phase 3 counties that have already reopened, and they were allowed to reopen under retail guidelines. So it's, I think, of use to kind of take some time to look at those retail guidelines as well, especially as many of you have retail spaces in your museums and sites. So I do just want to share with you how to kind of find that. Oh, my screen sharing is paused. Okay, I don't know what that means. Let me unpause it. New share. Resume share. Okay, I think, no, that wasn't it. Here we go. Okay. So I first want to mention that For Culture, well, I say this every time I'm with ACTCHO, just how lucky you all are to have For Culture. They're just doing exceptional work always, and I feel that especially right now helping organizations respond and recover. So they've put together just a really comprehensive and excellent toolkit for reopening. And you can find that by just going to For Culture and then clicking on this reopening, relief, reopen, recovery kind of response hub. And that'll bring you to this page. And then you can follow this to their toolkit. So I want you to know that the resources I pulled together were intended to be kind of a companion to the toolkit that was created by For Culture. They went into such great detail. You just can click down. Here's, you know, the copy of the guidelines that would be there that I just shared with you. We'll make sure you have. A lot of really great tips on how to communicate all of this to your visitors and the public. You know, there are resources with free signage in various languages and you know, to explain the mandatory mask requirements or things like that. Tips on how to train your staff and volunteers to communicate all of this, right? And to meet all of these standards. So there's just you know, you could spend a week going through all of these resources. So definitely, I would recommend first visiting those For Culture resources. And then if you're a smaller museum who maybe can't afford to buy a very expensive sneeze guard or having trouble sourcing bulk hand sanitizer, that's where the toolkit that I kind of put together is sort of a complement. So if you go to washingtonhistory.org, this is our website, and you'll find all of these materials under Heritage Resources. Heritage Resources, which is here. This is all of our kind of comprehensive list. But under COVID-19 resources, oh, by the way, that's where you'll find the Heritage Census as well. Shameless plug there. You'll head over to the COVID-19 resources for museums, and this is sort of our toolkit. So I kind of explain that, you know, this is meant to be a complement to the For Culture toolkit. There's that link there. Here's a link to, we all need to attach our guidelines. So I'll get with For Culture and make sure that we attach the most recent guidelines there. I guess really we're waiting for approval before we link them, but here's the phase 3 business reopening template, which would be another starting place. I think it's also important to acknowledge that even with the governor's blessings, it's still important that you make sure you're following or meeting the expectations of your county public health departments. So knowing what kind of county rules are around gathering sizes, it may be slightly different. And so here's a link to all of the county public health departments there. Here's a list of questions. If you're a small museum and kind of overwhelmed by all of this, here's a list of questions that you might start by asking. You know, what is your vegetation normally like? How many square feet is in your public space? You know, kind of do an audit of all the high touch points in your museum. So this is, I think, a good starting place if you're just sort of beginning to think about what reopening looks like for your organization. And then I go through and just have links to, not to where to buy sneeze guards, but to, you know, YouTube videos showing you how to make one with stuff that you might just have lying around. So this is really a DIY toolkit intended to be as accessible as possible for smaller museums. It is really going to require thinking outside the box in some cases. You know, for example, this one-way flow. In order to create one entrance and one exit, you might have to allow visitors to move through spaces that aren't always open to the public. You know, maybe they're going through a back door that normally isn't a place where you allow visitors to go. So you know, there's going to be all sorts of creative thinking that happens around this stuff. I can say, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from Shelby, a link to distilleries that are selling bulk hand sanitizer. There might be some in your communities. I know that Monica out at Gallery 1 in Ellensburg got all of her hand sanitizer from their local distillery. I am communicating with the small handful of museums who have opened already, either in phase 3 counties or much like Center for Wooden Boats, Fort Nisqually has been allowed to reopen under the outdoor recreation kind of reopening plans. If you have outdoor space at your site, now's the time to max it out for sure. But in some cases, attendance has been just a small trickle, but Fort Nisqually has actually seen attendance that is right on par with what they have seen in summers past. For a Saturday and Sunday, they're getting the same numbers as they got last year. So that indicates to me that people are looking for things to do, that they're anxious to kind of get out, and that they're willing to be safe and follow the guidelines. I've heard of very few incidents of people being very resistant to the mask orders and that kind of thing. So I think that's all kind of optimistic. And I hope that was kind of useful, mostly just to kind of point you in the right direction to where to find some of these resources. I'm gonna let Shelby take it away, and then maybe at the end we can come back together and answer any questions that you have that I might be able to help with. So let me stop sharing. Okay.
Great, thank you, Allison. That was really exciting. Good news, sorry. Okay, I prepared a presentation as well. Let's put together, here we go. Give me a minute. Okay. Can everyone see that? No thumbs up, okay. Okay, so Center Fund and Boats, we've been opening, have had some stuff going. Okay, so to start, I want to go back a little bit to give you guys a snapshot. 2019 was a very active year for us of growth. It was a very busy year. The main thing for us was that we got our Wagner Education Center open. That's the picture right over here of our co-founding director, Colleen Wagner, at the grand opening here. It also opened up some indoor exhibit space for us, and we got to start some other community events as well. But that's to say to lead into this timeline here, which is very, very intense timeline. This shows 2019 at the end and going into 2020. Our executive director announced his retirement in October, and we had some cash flow issues at the end of the year, which led to us to have to furlough our staff going into 2020, which luckily did not last too long, but so we could recover at the end of the year. But going into 2020, we had to postpone auction due to the reality of COVID that everyone's aware of. And going further into March, we had to furlough our staff again and close our operations. We luckily did get to receive the payroll protection plan due to a lot of effort by our staff, our executive director, and that was our new one that resumed responsibility in the beginning of March. And you see this intense timeline happening right here. We held a new fundraiser that we did online instead of our in-person auction, and got to resume because of this successful fundraiser, which I'll go into detail in a minute. We could resume outdoor operations of our mission-oriented programs, of our boat rentals, and some of our youth programs and adult sailing. So here's a little picture of intense impacts. Center Fund Boats is good at dealing with severe impacts. Due to COVID, we had to, our operations were severely impacted by this, or completely halted, because our cash flow was diminished by people not being able to come outside. Our registrations for youth camps and adult sailing was halted as well. This in turn affected that cash flow, and our staff had to be furloughed again just 4 months after they were in November. And we had to close our operations prior to the stay home and stay safe guidelines. So the initial impacts were felt very heavily. prior to all of the stay home and stay safe guidelines. This is a interesting way to look at it of the crisis management. I see Alice smiling. Thank you. This is a way that the U.S. Marines look at crisis management of injury. So like COVID is a universally felt injury right now. And this is something that our vice president on the board came up with and shared with us. So our executive director presented this to the board of how we were going to manage COVID. So to share this, Stop the Bleeding initially was to stop leaching out funds. So we shut down as quickly as we could because of the cash flow issues that we had in 2019. We didn't have reserve funds, so we didn't have much to lean on when we felt those initial impacts. So we just stopped operations and didn't have much to go on. So that's right here. Going into Start the Breathing, we kept our core organization operational while we were shut down by mainly keeping our staff on furlough instead of a layoff. And that's speaking for myself, being on furlough, we could keep us on our health benefits and keeping us able that we could come back. If we had lost our staff, we could not move into this next stage with a brand new staff. It just wouldn't have been doable. So we had to do that as an option. And we totally could have stayed in this stage, but we made a collective decision as a staff that we wanted to move on to the next stage of trying to reopen. We are our mission is to serve our community by being there for our community, by having the boats and docks available for everyone. So if we could do that safely, we were going to do everything we could to do that. So moving into protecting the wound, that's exactly that. Trying to figure out how we could deliver that mission to the people for our community. Figuring out how to do some fundraising, figuring out that how to redeliver the online auction, or sorting that out, and keeping our development director on full time so we could do that. And moving into treat for shock, we are now open, but it is in a very uncertain landscape. And we do know that we could start the cycle again if not for our own reasons, but because of COVID. So being independent with earning income and being able to navigate this cycle easier again. So for fundraising, as I mentioned, keeping our development director on so that she could apply for emergency funding from these key sponsors. So Seattle Office of Arts and Culture and Fur Culture are key ones, and also being able to process donations from members and key donors was incredibly important, and we applaud her immensely for that. We also did some medium-term fundraising. Getting that payroll protection was not easy. We had to find an outside bank, out-of-state bank, to help us with that. Our bank would not do it. So that was not easy, and big applaud to our executive director and our accountant to figure that one out. We had to restructure some debt. Doing our Inside the Dockside campaign was specifically branded with that wording for moving people from inside to back to our dockside, getting them. We also specifically planned it to be before Give Big to get ahead of those donations. And we also did a Give Big push as well. This was our Inside the Dockside fundraiser. It was our most successful fundraiser to date. We also raised a little bit more than this number up here. We got around 120,000, which was very, very emotional for us to also receive, but we were very clear about what we were asking for. This was to bring staff back to resume operations for our community. And CW's mission is connecting people through boats by getting them on the water. And that's what we did. and this will be being reopened have done. Here's an example of stuff that we did over those multiple platforms. We did it over about a week with only 3 weeks of planning, having different things available every day for people to attend to. So the ending day was a live virtual auction that people could bid on live on items. And every day prior to that, people could attend, like I said, live events from various things of like a board member showing how to smoke salmon at home, to attending like sea shanties by our youth programs manager singing in a boat with her dogs, which was just great. So also very mission focused. Here's a picture of our staff jumping in the lake afterwards as like a thank you, that we made a big splash, which was really cute. And everyone really enjoyed that. So our entire staff jumped in the lake. It was freezing cold at the time. So, only 2 weeks after our fundraiser, this was our website looked like. We showed that we used that money right away to put it towards what we said. We are now dockside, which is very positive. Again, rainbows, so it's great. With posted procedures, as Allison just said, being very clear on how we're going to be doing this safely, and this directs like how to get on the water dockside. We branded our own information on how we were going to do this. So I've been facilitating, not just managing the boat rentals, but being the person on the dock helping people as well. We went from being walk-up only for boat rentals to reservation only. So people have to call or go online. So we had to figure out how to manage that. We require masks, and this is by organization how you're going to do this, but we require masks on the dock to get to the boats. You can see this is Jesse, our staff member here, and some renters here in the boats, one household per boat. We sanitize the life jackets between every use with a hospital grade sanitizer. We have the boat sprayed down also between every use on high touch surfaces. Since some of our docks are narrow, we also we ask every reservation to stay at the gate so we can welcome them in and take them to the boat or to the oarhouse to sign waivers, to manage as Allison also mentioned, those in and out points, so there's no congestion, and limit how many people are around at a time, and limit those spaces. We also do our best to rig and de-rig the boats, or place oars in boats, or provide that as well to manage that high touch places. And our staff has, I think there's only like 8 of us, we're all doing everything we can to help. So like staff that haven't done this kind of graphic work are learning as we go and figuring out how to help everywhere we can. Other waterfront programs have opened that are essentially mission focused. Once we were able to, a few weeks later, your youth camps have opened as essential service. A huge thing that we've changed, we've been offering refunds, no cost registration. We've changed the no cancellation fees day of, so any child that's in our camp wants to be there, and that's been a really positive thing. We have a wait list so we can fill that spot if we need to, if the child's healthy. We've created hand sanitizing stations all over the docks, so that's helped as well for also the boat rentals. We created cohorts to create smaller groups, so the kids are designated from one group to one instructor, or like multiple instructors are helping, but they're separated out and have designated vessels and their own life jacket all week. It just took a lot of planning and effort from our youth manager. She spent a long time on different like national conferences and local ones as well to figure out the best way to do this. And then for adult sailing, we've minimized one student per boat, and have, instead of in-person shore school, which would be about 25 people in a room, to digital shore school. We have another location that's super idyllic. You can see there in the photo, up at Kama Beach, where you can rent cabins. We have an enduring partnership with state parks, and it's in a different county. We just followed and went along with their guidance for sanitation purposes and stuff. And then you could also start doing boat rentals up there, starting on June 2nd. So we have boat rentals at 2 locations, at Camet Beach and at our South Lake Union locations. And then we have started having volunteers back down, but only in outdoor facilities. So they're helping out in boat rentals at both SLU and at Camet Beach. And they can also help digitally for different activities. We are still getting in new volunteers by offering virtual orientations still, which has been unique to start, but we've been doing that for several months and have been seeing the same numbers of new people coming in, which is really exciting. And most of these people are either laid off or are underemployed, and are really, really grateful to have an opportunity to get outside and help us get back to the community and for something that they want to see still exists somewhere. So it's been really fun to have these people down, and they're really excited and grateful. Like I said, we're still in a semi-operating, so a lot of volunteering shifts are not open. A huge part of what we do is fix boats and make boats. So our boat shop shifts are not open because those are an indoor facility. This is a outdoor movie nights on a sail. Those are not happening. This is a nice little girl at a field trip. Those are not happening. This is a event rental. Nope, that's too many people in a room. Another thing, our indoor space of the Wagner Education Center, which I mentioned that first slide, is this is inside that building. Our museum is not open in that indoor space. And we also don't have our public sale, which I'll mention in more detail momentarily. But positively, we are getting through in huge part to our community by staying engaged and delivering our key programs of boat rentals and youth programs and adult sailing lessons. So it's still very positive, and our choice to open in partial has been a good choice for us. We are expecting 40% loss, but by being creative and nimble, we've been happy to be open, and it's been a good thing for us. We are still doing some other parts. Pay What You Can scholarships are still happening for youth programs. We started a Lake Union Swift apprenticeship. They're building a Chesapeake Lightcraft boat and a youth maritime collaborative. This is happening still. And we also started a new partnership with U.S. Sailing called the Seabold Sailors Program, which is increasing opportunity and promoting diversity for the sport of sailing and the racing and sailing, which is directed for middle school youth, which is huge. We've been lacking in serving that age group, and I know that's also a hard part for a lot of camps, is to serve middle school kids. So this is huge to provide that. And we got 9 of these really cool racing boats donated to us called RS Vivas, which almost doubled our youth sailing fleet. And it's free to participate. It's a little plug. If you know a youth that would be interested in learning how to sail or racing, please let us know. We're trying to fill these spots. Or if your museum would like to partner with us, please email us, and we'd love to talk to you about it. It'd be really great to partner. This is a huge accomplishment for us. We got this started during COVID, and we cleverly thought we call it PPP at CWB. It's free. A huge part for us is to provide access to maritime heritage with no financial barrier. So these boats, 2 of these rowboats are available every hour, every day we're open for 1 hour free rowing. And the message has gotten out. They are booked almost every day, all day. People are very happy to do this. And this was our replacement for public sale. Previously, every year we've been open, every Sunday, people can come down and sign up for a boat ride, for a skipper to take them out on Lake Union for an hour. And we couldn't do that during COVID. So you're kind of heartbroken to not have that available. This was our replacement. And with so far I've had, you can see down here, over 400 participants. And I am helping this program directly by putting people in these boats and catching them when they get back. And it is incredibly rewarding. People are ecstatic, grateful. They still can't really believe it's free and that we're doing this. So they're learning how to row on their own. It's one household in a boat or one person self-sufficiently doing something right now and getting out in the water. It's relaxing for them to just check out and get out there. So this is great. These boats are incredibly stable and easy for new rowers, so it's very safe as well to send someone out on their own. So it's been really good. And in other ways, we've been doing digital engagement. We can't hold our festival, our Win a Boat Festival this year, but we're doing it online with some socially distanced in-person events. Our co-founder, Colleen Wagner, passed away in January, so we're hosting a sail pass of her boathouse, which is this right here, on the 26th, hosting a Ultra Regatta and some other like powered races and our quick and daring. We're going to host our third Friday speaker series again in October, and we're also going to launch a podcast, which is recordings of our other co-founder, Dick Wagner, recordings of him speaking, which will be really fun to share with people. And some other, just working on some more digital engagement, which we're really excited about. And this is all new for us, doing some more digital engagement, but it's a better time than ever. So yeah, we're doing our best with this, being open. Questions? Thank you. Just gonna share.
Well, thank you, Allison and Shelby. You certainly shared a lot of information. I'm just going to mention a couple of things I think were maybe a little bit more critical than some of the others, which Allison said, it's not just the state, it's not just the county, it's not just the city that you live in, it's all three of them. So making sure that you actually fulfill the requirements that are appropriate for you when you reopen. And I really like the graphic that the Center for Wooden Boats has, showing people what they've done, because I think that that's going to be a really key thing as we reopen, is people need to feel comfortable coming to your location. And the way they're going to feel comfortable is by knowing what you're doing. And they're going to make that decision before they get to the door, right? They're not going to get to the door if they're not comfortable. So deciding the best way for you to share what you're doing is probably going to be a big step in getting people ready to return. So I see a few comments in the chat. I'm going to look through to see if there are any questions, but if anyone has any questions they'd just like to unmute themselves and ask, why don't you do that?
I just saw a question from Cindy asking about our enhanced social media plan. We have a community engagement director. Her name's Sandy. I'd be happy to get you in contact with her. She is very skilled at what she does and is working with a lot of volunteers as well to figure out how we can be more engaged. And I mean, we have people scheduling out when to have posts on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, there's lots involved there. So let's see.
I would also, Shelby, just add to that, because I can't do a single conversation about anything without talking about Canva, C-A-N-V-A.
Yes.
But if you're a small nonprofit, you can get a free username and password for this super user-friendly graphic design platform that will allow you to drop in your logo and create really great looking social media posts, posters. I know museums that have created huge banners for the front of their buildings using Canva. I'll put that in the chat, but I mean, the Center for Wooden Boats, y'all, I don't know if you're just learning your graphic design chops, but everything looks excellent. I stink at graphic design. I'm terrible at it. So Canva's like my go-to because it makes it really easy.
Yeah, I know that we have used it, and I know Sandy has used it as well. So some of those graphics that you saw are from Canva. So
I feel like I should be getting commission from them or something. I don't know. I talk about it all the time.
I see questions about sneeze guards. We've just been using some plexiglass that we found. It's wherever you can find it. We've recycled it from different projects, so we've been able to clean and wipe down. So
I think the question is, because you have like some equipment at the Center for Wooden Boats, can you actually help other organizations in the production of sneeze guards?
oh, like sharing material, or sorry,
Well, I didn't write, so
looking for the question.
it's from Aaron.
Sorry, I was thinking if this is something you already have the equipment and expertise, there's going to be some wooden components in making any kind of a barrier. Is this something that could be a potential additional revenue stream for?
Potentially. Most of our sneeze guards have actually just been a plexiglass screwed right over a window that we already have. We've been finding places. I created another rental window in a different building to create two separate locations. So we have sailing rentals out of our normal oar house location, which is out on our wooden sailing dock or livery dock. And then to alleviate congestion points, I created another oar house out of our boat shop, which is near our rowing lagoon area. And there was conveniently a sliding window in that area, so I could just put plexiglass over that. So I didn't have to construct anything. We just screwed plexiglass over that window that slides open. But I'd be happy to talk to people if they need help designing something. But we'd be happy to make people help people make things. Yes, that's the answer.
That's
But we're great at creating. And I'll put my email directly in here if people would like to ask me for help on here.
So, curiosity question, how many of you have a written reopening plan that you're working against? Okay, so it looks like some of you do have one. That's excellent. So I'm going to encourage for our meeting in a couple weeks, if you have a reopening plan that you're either finished with or working on, come to the meeting so you can answer questions for people that don't have one. If you don't have one, get started thinking about what you should be including in that. Certainly Shelby, provided thoughts on that, having sanitation stations, having, your policies and things.
And Alice?
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt, but at either the American Association of Museums or the ASLH website, there are tons of sample reopening plans. So those are pretty easy to find. So almost a template that just to give you something to start with.
Glad you interrupted. Good point. So we'll have a last call for questions or comments. If anyone just has some comments, that's fine too.
Allison, would you repeat the two places you said?
Sure. So both the American, I'm old enough to call it American Association of Museums, the American Alliance of Museums, which is, I can't think of what the website is right now, but you can just Google that, or the American Association for State and Local History. They both have COVID resource pages, and if you just click on that, it's pretty easy to navigate to sample reopening plans, I think. And they've even crowdsourced quite a few, so people have been posting their own plans just to kind of share and get ideas. So that's an easy place to start.
So there's those.
Thank you, Chuck.
Don't forget about the For Culture website, the state website. ACHO's Heritage Advisor puts links to resources in it. So there are a couple of different places. If you can't find what you're looking for, reach out. That's one of the things we try to do, is help each other, and we'll do what we can to make sure that anything that we know we can share. So,
well, I just want to say good luck, everybody. And I just put my email in the chat. So please feel free to reach out if there's something quirky that you're trying to just figure out, or resources you're trying to find. I'm really happy to do anything I can to help.
So mark on your calendar, Monday, August 31st at 1 o'clock is when we're going to have our open discussion. And, you know, if you have a topic that you, or a question that you have that's not reopening, and it's like, I really need this, bring that too. You know, we don't have to be super restrictive. We're all friends here, just trying to do our best getting through the situations that we're in. Okay, well, I will just say, I hope to see you then, if not before. And, you know, it's a tough time, but I'm glad to see people out and about. You're looking good. And hopefully at the end of this, we will be able to look back and say things that we've learned, relationships we've made, and, you know, it'll be a good experience despite all the challenges that have come up. So thanks for joining us today. And I'll let you get back to your regularly scheduled day.